wild sleigh rides, ice-covered high-speed sledding slopes, Russian exotic rituals that were fun for Russians but looked strange in the eyes of foreign citizens. Hi everyone, Merry Christmas to all of you, and we'd also like to thank all those people who had recently followed our channel. Welcome, and we hope that you enjoy your time here. Today we will talk about the way the citizens of Russian Empire used to spend their Christmas holidays, and back then we have already talked how Russian royals used to celebrate their Christmas holidays. If you haven't yet watched it, make sure to do so, or if you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. So there are two parts of this video, and this one is the first one, which is dedicated to the daytime activities, which were full of fun. And the second part is going to be about the nighttime activities, which were full of mystery. Winter holidays used to stretch from Christmas Day on December 25 until the Feast of Epiphany on January 6. Christmas was a happy holiday celebrated in church, in families, and out in the streets. Some of these celebrations people who visited from abroad found to be very exotic, to say the least, but let's talk about everything in detail right now. First of all, Christmas was the end of the year and everyone celebrated. Factories and businesses would stop working, kids would start the school-free days, people would celebrate. What were the holidays? Christmas Day, December 25. Today Russia celebrates Christmas on another day, and we will talk about it in another video. January 1st was the New Year, and January 6th was the Feast of Epiphany. So all these holidays would form the holiday package, which is called Christmas time. This started from December 25 to January 1st would be called Holy Nights, and January 1st starts the terrifying nights, which lasted until the Feast of Epiphany. December 25, when everyone got back from the Christmas church service, they would have a big holiday dinner full of exotic food to celebrate the end of the Christmas fasting period. The dinner table had a roasted goose with apples, roasted piglet, and a veal ham. They were the mandatory dishes, and everything else could be anything and depended on who cooked. They didn't drink much that night because it was a religious holiday. These days started the period of mutual visits. Friends and family members had to visit each other for about 3 days in a row, and you had to visit everyone you were friends with. There was a hierarchy of visits. First, you paid a visit to the most important people, and then everyone else. Sometimes it would bring trouble, as people who were not visited first would get offended. The gifts would only be given to kids, and the Christmas gifts tradition would only come to Russia in the late 1800s. Before that, kids would be getting them around January 1st, a period when children's holidays were traditionally celebrated. The main holiday symbol, Christmas tree, was introduced by the founder of St Petersburg, Emperor Peter the Great, in the early 1700s. He loved how Europeans decorated everything with pine trees for Christmas and wanted his citizens to do the same. He had also moved the New Year celebrations from September 1st to January 1st. Again, the way they did it in Europe. This new date was accepted by the people without problems, but people didn't fully embrace the tradition of decorating everything with pine trees, and when Peter died in 1725, people stopped using trees for decoration. Two main reasons why this happened. Usually, the pine leaves were used to decorate pubs and brothels in Russia, and the pine was the symbol of something frivolous. And the second, when someone died, the coffin was decorated with pine leaves and evergreens as the symbol of eternal life. It was only in the early 1800s when they started using pine trees for the decorations widely in Russia. Originally, they used pine trees only in St. Petersburg. We have already covered this tradition in our previous Christmas video. You can check it out by clicking the link down in the description. And only in the early 1900s, this tradition became popular in Russia, so it is still new. The Christmas tree was decorated with candies, different nuts, apples, and other delicacies. In the early 1900s, mandarin oranges became a big part of winter holidays, so big that they became the main symbol of this period and remain until this day. At that time, they were very expensive and were only used as Christmas tree decorations. People would also craft their own little toys and lanterns to decorate their own trees. People loved that because it was setting the mood for the upcoming holidays. All the decorations were made on the last day of the Christmas fest. Early in the morning of that day, when kids were still in bed, the parents would take the tree into the main room of the house, and in the evening, upon returning home, the family would change clothes and open the doors to the room with the candlelit tree standing there, and the kids would freeze in shock. This was the moment they waited for all of the year. Then the lights were turned out and everything would repeat the next day when the first guests arrived, and the day after, again and again until the end. On January 1st, the tree was taken down and the family would take the ladder and start to take the decorations of the tree layer by layer, giving the chocolates, candies and toys to the kids to share between each other. The rest of Christmastide was spent without the tree.
The New Year is not a religious holiday, so family members used to spend it alone.
For a very long time, it wasn't even celebrated. Sometimes it happened that people didn't even wait until midnight. They would go to bed and upon waking up would congratulate each other with the end of the year and the beginning of a new one. Eventually, people would start waiting until late on that day and would raise champagne glasses at midnight. The guests would greet the host with the sun, wishing them well for the new year, and all went to bed after. It was only at the end of the 19th century that people started to go out to the restaurant to celebrate the New Year's. Big cities had a lot of restaurants and people would usually stay there for the whole night. Everyone was dressed up and pretty. They would eat and drink until about 4 in the morning. Russian Christmas celebrations would often attract visitors from abroad who sometimes would come to specifically see just them. A lot of these travelers left us diaries and memories that help us learn about what was happening back then. One of the biggest things that impressed everyone was illumination. Citizens would take little bottles filled with oil, fire them up, and decorated the facades with them. These would light the whole city up, and it was a beautiful contrast with everyday life because the city was gloomy and it was overcast in winter pretty much every day. It happened all over the city, and even on the outskirts, people would decorate their homes this way, and there they would form patterns with these little lanterns that were unique and they looked very festive. The whole period of Christmastide lasted between December 25 and January 4th. So what else were people doing then? In the daytime, they would always go out for a sleigh ride. People all over Russia were doing that, in the country and in the cities. Usually, everyone tried to get away from the crowd into the suburbs, where they could ride fast and free. The most fun thing to do was to go full speed and suddenly make a sharp turn so everyone would fall into the snow. The sledges were also richly decorated. Wealthier people had them carved in a shape of swans and other animals. The nobles used this activity to show off their wealth, and for many young men it was an opportunity to brag about their brides and wives. All the girls would wear a fur coat, and the more expensive the fur was, the wealthier the family was considered. And of course, when it came to noblemen showing off, they would ride slow, with dignity, and without falling into the pile of snow. People also loved ice-covered sledding slopes. For us today, this would look like some extreme sport. On frozen river or the river shore, they would make sledding slopes. The height was very impressive. It was as high as 8-storied building, no safety fences or nets at all. The hill was very slippery due to being made of ice, and people would climb it and slide down at the speed of about 20-30 miles per hour in small flat sledges. It was especially popular among the young people, as 2 people would usually have to sit inside, and it was a good opportunity to slide down the hill with your sweetheart. Some particularly brave men would be courageous enough to ice skate down this hill. Surprisingly, no serious accidents were ever documented.
Later, however, city authorities
Had decided this type of activity to be too dangerous, and they banned these hills.
However, they never stopped being popular and became the prototype of today's roller coasters in theme parks. Interestingly enough, they were called American mountains, just as they were later called Russian mountains in America. It happened because first they came to America and got this name as they came from Russia. Then they were not in use in Russia anymore, and later the tradition had returned, and because it was America that it came back from, the roller coasters in Russia are still called American mountains.
So this is the end of the part 1 of that long video. The next part is gonna be about all that mysteries that happen during the night time of Christmas tide period. Make sure you don't miss that one. Thank you all for watching and see you soon.